everybody. Mark Nicholson here, host of Historical Perspective, one more time with my friend Dr. Patrick Blythe, and we're talking today about Vietnam and whether or not the United States could have won it, because there's an assertion out there that the United States was not allowed to win the war, that somehow our military was handcuffed by politicians and we didn't win the war because we weren't allowed to. And we're going to talk about that assertion and what that assertion means. And so let's start out with the United States' involvement in Vietnam. We were fighting the communists, the Ho Chi Minh-led communists, the Viet Cong, and basically fighting them in a guerrilla warfare style and essentially winning every battle. That's my history. My history's pretty good here. In fact, the famous Tet Offensive, where the Vietnamese swept in and supposedly the United States won that battle.
Yeah,
Crushed the Viet Cong. It was months before they recovered from that. And so what was it that the United States had to do to win this war that supposedly we just weren't allowed to win, I guess? So,
well, I think a little bit of background about how the United States got involved is helpful to understanding the difficulty, if not impossibility, to a military solution in Vietnam. Mm-hmm. The Viet Cong, under Ho Chi Minh, were a very experienced anti-colonial force.
Yeah.
The Vietnamese had, at different points in time, obviously been colonized by the French, prior to that the Chinese, and of course during World War II when the Japanese took over the French colony in Vietnam. Ho Chi Minh, who was a great admirer of not just Karl Marx, but actually of Thomas Jefferson, had experience in guerrilla war fighting. And indeed, just a side note, during World War II, the OSS, which was the forerunner to the CIA, actually had interviewed Ho Chi Minh, decided he would be a good ally. Ho Chi Minh was much more than a communist, was an anti-imperialist fighter, and had hated the Chinese for their attempts at imperialism.
Well, the Japanese specifically.
And the Japanese, yes.
Because Japanese were in Vietnam during World War II.
Yes, very much. Mm-hmm. And so thought they would be very helpful. But for a variety of reasons, in large part because the French, after World War II, wanted to hang on to their colony.
Yeah.
And after the quote-unquote fall of China, which Harry Truman was blamed for, later the Eisenhower administration did not want to have another country, quote, fall to communism.
We're
and so
talking about domino effect now, which
exactly.
is a theory from that era.
Yeah.
When one country falls, they all fall.
And oh yes, good,
simplistically,
good back.
Yeah.
Very simplistic. Well, the domino theory itself was simplistic.
Yeah, the domino theory. Well, I could go ahead and do a whole other video on the domino theory.
Exactly.
Anyway.
But I think with Eisenhower did not want to send ground forces, but started sending because he knew that it was not a good fight.
Mm-hmm.
If the French wanted to fight it, here are some tanks, money, and guns. But other than that, we're not interested. Kennedy administration pushed up advisors.
Well, in the meantime, the French did what the French do, which was surrender at Dien Bien Phu.
Yes. Well, it basically decided, quite smartly, that the British are in this process of decolonization. Maybe that's not a bad idea. We can save some money and focus on our own country.
But they drug theirs clout in the mid-'60s. But
well, yes.
Theirs got really
well,
ugly.
sometimes they took a little bit longer to learn that.
There's a whole story in North Africa where it gets really ugly really fast. But
very much so. Of course, the French are still working on that. But there's another story. The United States is not the only imperial country in the world.
No. But anyway, so the United States gets involved with the French leading.
Yes.
The leader...
and sides...
whose name I'll mispronounce.
Yes.
Diem.
Sides with the South Vietnam.
Essentially the Catholics who are supported by the French, and then the United States props them up as a bulwark against the communists.
Yes. Which leads to an important part of this. The difficulty of winning a military strategy of Vietnam was that Dim's government, and again mispronouncing that, possibly anglicizing it probably quite a bit.
It's DIEM when it's like Diem or something like that, so it's really hard.
But was hated by many Vietnamese people. Part they controlled large areas of land that they had inherited from the French, and also were fairly brutal about putting down their own uprisings. Ho Chi Minh, one of his central philosophies was not necessarily orthodox Marxist communism, but was land reform and land redistribution. And for many peasants who would like to own their own piece of land rather than working for somebody else, that was much more appealing. So you had several things even before the United States even got involved. You had a very a force that was experienced at anti-colonialism, and you had a population that was not very much interested.
Well, and Ho Chi Minh also got the Buddhist on his side.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, Marxism, I think, is associated with atheism.
Yes.
But Ho Chi Minh said, I don't really like that part, so he just ignored it, as people do with philosophies. Nobody ever takes philosophy lock, stock, and barrel, and he was not any different. And he made friends with the Buddhists, which make up a large part of Vietnam. Yeah. So even if you were a Buddhist, you didn't feel alienated by Ho Chi Minh's communist government.
But you did by the Catholic government.
Yeah, by the Catholic
which tried to repress the majority Buddhist population. So all this stuff is going on when Lyndon Johnson decides that it would be that the North Vietnamese are getting too strong and the United States needs to intervene. Yeah. And of course, made up reasons with the how come this name is escaping my mind?
Gulf of Tonkin.
Gulf of Tonkin resolution, thankfully.
1964. I was at 1864. The Civil War.
Well, we had just been doing it in an earlier era, yes. Yes, and was able to get tons of power and slowly built up forces, and so by the late 60s there were the force, and do I have this number, about 500,000 American soldiers in Indochina by the time of...
I think that number's a little inflated because that counts like Navy men around the area, which there was the CEDAW Treaty and things like that, so we had a lot of people in the Philippines, and I ran around Indonesia.
But by 1968, 69, and 70, the United States had a massive presence, and like Mark said earlier, we're winning most of the battles, but the Vietnamese did not need to win the battles.
And you're oppressing 90% of the population, which doesn't support your presence there.
Yes.
You're fighting for nothing.
Yes.
You're fighting essentially an entire nation, so...
Well, no, after Johnson lost and Nixon came in, they weren't fighting for nothing. Nixon said, peace with honor. Not sure what that meant.
He didn't either. He said it just to say it.
But he had a very secret peace plan.
Yeah. So secret that nobody ever found out what it was.
Well, yes, until later, which was basically to bomb Cambodia. And this, because of...
That sounds funny just to say it on the episode. We're going to defeat Vietnam by bombing Cambodia.
Exactly. Yes, and this, I think, is...
Like, we're going to defeat Germany by bombing Denmark.
Yeah. And I think this is one of the major... problems with the central question is like, the United States military was held back. It was not held back at any point during the war. United States military, and I don't want to... There are so many stereotypes about U.S. soldiers, and of My Lai massacre, which was horrific.
It wasn't typical.
Not typical, no. I think when you want to understand even the My Lai massacre, you have to put it within the context of U.S. soldiers who had been fighting for a war whose message kept changing, fighting against an enemy that was demonized by their own culture, by both Johnson and Nixon administrations, and told that these people were not human. And this creates a perfect recipe for these types of things to happen, rather than blame soldiers for these crises. And of course, it was, in many ways, many of the violent deaths that came about were much more from aerial raids, I think, from rather than U.S. raids on the civilian population, was ground raids, infantry raids, was the napalm, carpet bombing, indiscriminate bombing of Laos and Cambodia.
We did everything but nuke them.
Yes.
And literally, and if you think that was a good idea,
key to the question.
You're a crazy person, and I don't want to talk to you. If you think that nuclear weapons was the way to end Vietnam, I don't want to talk to you. You're insane.
Well, I think that was another problem I think a lot of people associate. Remember World War II, where there were two stable governments in Germany and Japan that could negotiate surrender. Ho Chi Minh and his people were just looking for trying to get rid of colonizers, right?
Yeah.
The surrender.
Well, remember, Ho Chi Minh was dead before the Vietnam War.
True.
That shows you how big the move was. Ho Chi Minh died in, I think, 1970. You can look that up, Wikipedia.
Yes.
Or
check a source against Wikipedia.
I have lots of books here, but I'm sure one.
So we could look it up, but that would be boring to watch.
We choose not to. But Ho Chi Minh died before the end of Vietnam.
Yes.
He did die before the end of Vietnam. I believe it's 1970 or 71, like right in that ballpark. And so it shows that the movement was pretty much imbued within the people at that point. That it was just their cause, and they weren't going to give up just because we blew up their nation several times over, which we did. And so this idea that we didn't win because we were held back is utterly ridiculous, because there was literally nothing to win.
And there was really nothing. Yes, and well, the message. What did winning mean? Mm-hmm. Did winning mean the establishment of a South Vietnamese government over the entirety of Vietnam? That was, I guess, at the beginning of the war. Did it mean, and then later in the war, was it just holding up the South Vietnamese government in where it currently stood, or did it mean peace with honor, which we still don't know what that means? I don't know if Nixon knew what that meant.
But it sounded really good in sound bites.
Yes,
like when he said to the press, it sounded really good.
Yes. So I think, and these are the difficulties of thinking that the Vietnam War was not a war like World War II, where you're trying to stop one country from invading and destroying.
And the United States hasn't fought that conventional war since World War II.
No.
Korea wasn't that war. Vietnam wasn't that war. Not even the first Persian Gulf War, which was pretty simplistic, wasn't that war. Yes. Grenada was that war, I'm sure. Wasn't it? Yeah. Noriega, who we kicked out, that was that war. Yeah.
Yes. Well, and maybe you could say the first Gulf War in '91.
Well, that's right, the first Persian Gulf War.
Oh, sorry, you said that. My apologies.
He just doesn't listen to me. You see the problem?
I don't.
All right. So yeah, I think we just agree then that there's nothing to win. Like the idea that we didn't win Vietnam because we held back the military is ridiculous, because what were we going to win?
Yes.
Like that's where it comes down to. So. All right, so, I mean, you have anything to add to that real quick?
I think we're doing well.
Okay, all right. Well, I hope you enjoyed listening, and I hope you get that historical perspective. Okay, I'm back in. We're not doing a video this time. We're not talking history. I'm just thinking, and I can mess up all I want on this one because I don't really care. Thinking Dr. Patrick Blythe from Seminole State College in Sanford, Florida. I got it right that time. How about that? I'm pretty sure I messed it up a few times when we were doing the videos. This is Pat. This is guy's been my friend for 14 years. Thank you for doing the videos with me.
Well, thanks, Mark.
He's stopping by for a visit on his way through, and I've known you since 2000.
Wow.
I know.
Yes, that's right.
We're getting old.
No,
because that was the year we went to college.
Yes.
There's probably people watching this video who were born just shortly before 2000, because I know some people on the website are like 19, 20 years old.
Oh, goodness. Well, we're still not that old. Old is always relative. Old is anybody who's about 5, 6 years older than you are.
That's not true. I've got friends who are 5. They don't seem old to me.
No. 10 years older.
10 years older.
And I would like to thank Mark. This is fun. I've enjoyed his BigBlackHatMan videos. I'd like to say thanks for this chance. This was just just a fun conversations on a few topics.
Well, when I became a famous,
not serious scholarship, just enjoyable conversations.
When I become a famous PBS host, when I'm hosting my own show, you can be an advisor on the show. You can write for the show, and we'll write stuff and we'll sneak profanities into the script, and we'll do because we're still like 6 years old sometimes.
We'll have more time for some background research.
We're gonna put the word "but" in there,
so that way we won't have to be thinking this date.
Well,
right
that's why you script things, though. This was unscripted.
This was unscripted, which
it's better that way.
Fun.
It's better that way. I mean,
they both have their uses.
You should see when I write a script, though. I'm terrible. I read like the first 2 lines and go, and then I remember what's in there, and then I go to town. Like, I'm terrible with the script. I'm the worst. I'm serious. I'll read like the first line, and they're like, okay, now I'm just going to read what I want to say.
And I think there's places for both of that. I tend to be the opposite. When I have a lecture or something like that, I like to have every single detail down. So this was enjoyable for me, although a little bit nervous.
When I lecture, though, I'm very digressive. Like I'm on the point. Very rarely happens.
Yes.
I will go off topic so quickly it's not even funny.
Well, I mean but I think there's both. That's why I enjoy running discussions. Sometimes even more than lectures. These things are fun. Yeah.
And now I think we should wrap up doing videos today. We did these all in one quick stretch here. We've been working for about an hour, so not too long. But the thing is, we had to turn off the air conditioning while we worked, and man, is it getting hot in here.
Yes. Actually, I think that's just you, Mark.
Is it? I'm one sexy beast.
Okay.
Oh, I remember your. Hey, I remember your girlfriend from college. So don't even give me that.
Oh yes.
Yeah. She wasn't really his girlfriend. She was his stalker. Patrick had a stalker.
Kind of.
No, not kind of. She came to your room at all hours of the day. That is literally a stalker.
Thankfully, she wasn't interested in me, though.
Yeah, well, that's true. She was stalking him to stalk someone else. That's the level of crazy. Stalking you to stalk somebody else.
Okay. But that's a different story.
I like that story. That's a funny story. Maybe next time we visit.
It's been about 13 years.
Yeah.
I still can't laugh at that.
I can. I can laugh at it a lot.
I know. You could laugh at it at the time.
I can laugh at it. There's actually lots of stories from then I can laugh at that you, like your religious Bible study group that I can laugh about hilariously.
That didn't work out too well. Especially when partway through the semester I stopped believing in God. That doesn't help with the Bible study group.
That's a bad Bible study group when they actually get you to stop believing in God.
Yes.
Like after being around you
well,
guys.
Well, actually, I think it was mostly reading the Bible that did that for me.
Oh my God. We should actually, maybe next time we get together we'll just have to do a memories video and talk about like the time we snuck on the football field and tried to kick field goals. Snuck on a Shattered States football field trying to kick field goals.
Right.
Yeah, we didn't make any.
Actually, you did pretty well. I did not.
Well, I actually played football in high school. You did not. So
this is true.
Yeah, but it's that's the kind of good thing we did back in those days.
I'm sure everybody has their college stories, and ours are probably more subdued than many.
Yeah, because we didn't get drunk and get rowdy. So
no.
Well, you were in the Bible study group, so you couldn't get drunk and get rowdy.
I did after the Bible study. After I finished going to Bible study,
you couldn't help it anymore.
Didn't have a choice at that point.
Like the old drunk in the 1930s. Oh. All right. So, all right. Thank you for doing the videos with me. And,
thank you, Mark. I appreciate it. This was fun.
Hey, and guys, thanks for watching. We really appreciate it. See ya.